Welcome to the Final Score Network and the Final Score Podcast, presented by Team Anders Realtors. I'm Andy. He's former NCAA student athlete and co-host.
Ryan, Cam, two-hand monster flush off the inbound. Ryan, Cam, slam, jam. Oh boy.
Find the TFS pod and our playlists wherever you stream your podcast or music. Follow us on X at TheFinalScore35. Oh, and one more note before we get started.
I'd like to apologize to anyone I've not offended yet. Please be patient. I'll get to you shortly.
Welcome into episode 212 of the Final Score Podcast. February 10th, we're back on a Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend watching it wasn't super, I wouldn't say that the football game last night. Worst commercials ever. We'll talk about that later. Good halftime show, though. Football season's officially wrapped up. We'll put a bow on that in spot 4 of Around the World today. We'll talk a lot of college hoops, some golf. We've getting the home stretch, getting closer to some majors, and some mailbag. Mitch Blues is back. Glad to have you back, Mitch. Chris, you're slacking. You're in Hawaii. You're chilling, drinking Mai Tais by the pool. I get it. It's all right. Without further ado, I'll take the podium, and I want to talk about college-in boy Tom Brady. Fox has made just a dire mistake, grave mistake. This guy sucks. I mean, we said at the beginning of the year that he was bad. Then he kind of got better. He started being a little less awkward. He maybe getting a little more comfortable. Last night proved to me that Fox just wasted, how much are they paying them? Like $300 million or something?
$60 million a year, I think it is.
He sucks. He only talks about himself. He referred to Patrick Mahomes the whole time as Patrick or Pat, not Mahomes or Patrick Mahomes. Like he's standing there having a conversation with him. He brings nothing of use. He's just like, yeah, you know, the guy tackled him. His face doesn't move because he has so much Botox and collagen in there. He literally can't even move. He's wearing some Ronald McDonald $800,000 watch on his wrist. He just sucks. Greg Olson's way better. We need to bring him back because he actually brought some substance, some personality, and he's way smarter than him, frankly. Just because Tom played quarterback and was, you know, he's obviously one of the greatest of all time. There's no doubt about that. As much as we don't like him, there's no doubt about it. But he sucks as an announcer. He can't do it. Just because you're a good player doesn't mean you're a good announcer. Tony Romo, he was good for 1 year. He's sucked ever since. Troy Aikman, he's gotten better as he's done it. But I heard this on the Valenti show today, actually. Did you know he went to Europe and called Euro football games before coming here so he could actually get used to it?
Yeah, I agree. Here's the thing. The measure, here's how you can tell if a guy is a good color commentator. Can you get through a game like last night when there is no suspense? Biggest game of the year. You got to be able to carry the broadcast and keep people watching. You certainly, you know, the casual fans maybe are watching because of commercials and all that kind of nonsense. But in a game like that, in my mind, the mark of a truly great color commentator is you don't notice that the game is a blowout.
Yep. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like he just was saying dumb stuff. I'm like, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, if Fox had wanted to experiment with him this year and kind of...
They could have put him in a different position.
Done it sometimes or made him, earn his way up. They made, I agree, they made a huge mistake. I think Olsen, if NBC is smart, they'll pick up Olsen or even maybe CBS. It's tough because I will say like Nance and Romo have a good rapport, and that's, you can get away with some things there. And I'm not saying that, they don't have a good rapport on Fox, but it was way better when it was Olsen, for sure. I'll stay in the realm of the Super Bowl. And I thought I would just do on my podium the things that the Super Bowl should stop doing, the things that the Super Bowl should change, right? We're on number 59. So it's been around, obviously, all of my life plus. You can't help it if you get a dud game. Last night was a little bit of a dud game. But there are certain things that you can just lock, stock, and barrel change that would make it a better experience for the fan. Never mind the people who want to pay it's a corporate game. Ryan and I talked about this before. In the Super Bowl, there's very few actual fans for each team, minus the family tickets and stuff. It's a corporate game. I get that. I think it's ridiculous, but whatever. That's not really my point. So I've got some changes. Some of these are small. Some of them are like, yeah, so what? But these are my opinion, what would make the game better. Stop leaking your ads. It used to be that you didn't get up to use the bathroom until somewhere in the third quarter when ads started to repeat, because the ads were so good, the halftime show was so good, the game was so good. Last night the game was bad, so you had an opportunity, but this notion that they're paying $5 million for a 30-second slot and they're leaking half of these ahead of time, it's like, why? Let alone the fact that, I'm sorry, some people would disagree with me, I think the ads sucked. We lack creativity in this country anymore. We either go back and repeat the same things because that was what was once funny, or we're too woke to get out of our own way to be creative and to kind of take a step over the boundary. I believe like a Doritos and a Mountain Dew, are sometimes willing to do that. Maybe the beer commercials used to do that a little bit. Bud Light clearly is trying to make a little bit of a comeback after losing billions over, choosing transvestites over blue collar. But like, that's a basic and easy one. Stop leaking the ads and make the ads better. Like, they're awful. They're just not even entertaining anymore. Bigger than that, move the damn game to 5:00. Now, Chris is in Hawaii. He was there. He said it was weird watching it at 1:30, and that was a bad game, so he was going to go lay out at the pool in the middle of the day. There's a lot less fans that are in Hawaii and Alaska watching it at noon, or, in yesterday's case, 1:30 when the game started, versus, middle of the afternoon or whatever. If you want to count out of the West Coast, that's fine. Make the kick time 5:00. That's 2:00 on the West Coast. Heck, that's noon in Hawaii. That's totally fine. Here's why. The game is so long with halftime and everything. It makes it so like you're exhausted to go to work on Monday, even if you have no skin in the game. Imagine in the state of Michigan, had the Lions been in the game, Lions would have smoked the Chiefs too, by the way. How would we have felt? Ryan, what time did you get home? By the time you got your girlfriend dropped off, by the time you got back from your friends, it's 11:30 at night on Sunday. You got to get up at 6:30 the next morning and go to work. So start the game at 5. What's the difference? Because by the time it starts, it's like 6:40.
Right, at least.
Shorten the halftime show. Here's another thing. This truly, I said this to Mom and Mike and Rachel last night. The Super Bowl is really 2 games because you have the first half and you have an extra elongated break because of, look at the stage that they put out there in the short period of time. That's impressive, by the way, but like halftime is 10 minutes longer, I think, during the Super Bowl. So by the time they play in the second half, it's literally a whole nother ball game. So shorten the halftime show. Make that a preview for a for a full concert. Air it on TV after the trophy ceremony. Get people to stick through the trophy ceremony and watch the speeches and the grab ass and all that kind of stuff and all the interviews, and then do a full concert like if it was Kendrick Lamar or whomever it may be. So you get a regular length 10-minute. Doesn't have to be such a production at halftime. Whet the appetite for after the show and use that. So many years, not as much last night because Fox just kicked off a new season of The Floor, which is a pretty cool trivia show, by the way, or game show. For years though, it was always the launch into a new show. I remember when I was a kid, the most famous one that stands out to me is the A-Team. I watched that when I was a kid, and I remember that came after a Super Bowl. Why? Don't even waste your time. If you have it earlier, the kids can stay up if you want to, and then you have your concert after the game. That's a novel concept. They'll never do it, but that's a way to keep viewers till the end of the game. Let's see. Here's another one. I've heard this a lot. Make the Monday after a national holiday. So probably a quarter of America will get next Monday off for President's Day. So either move President's Day up a week, as in to today, or move the Super Bowl back another week, which may happen anyway if they go to 18-game season, and make Monday a national holiday. You kind of treat the Super Bowl as a national holiday, still start the game earlier, but give people Monday off. Philly needs Monday and this week and the next several Mondays to clean up their city, which is its own asinine thing. Why people burn and riot in their cities when they win things, I'll never understand. That's the most dumb thing in the history of mankind. Michigan State included has done it. Here's another big one. I'm going to get a little bit political here. Stop with the ads that pander. Like all of a sudden, last night, Nike cares about actual women athletes.
First Super Bowl ad in 25 years.
Right. And all of a sudden they care about women when they're supporting men playing women's sports up until the Trump administration. Ooh, but now they look really good. And so they're pandering to society. Like, stop that horse shit. I can see right through that. Like, somebody screen this stuff. Here's another one of my favorites, and this will kind of lead into our tee up this week too, is like the NFL puts end racism in the end zone, and yet they start the game with the black national anthem. Now, per se, I've got absolutely zero problem if African Americans have the pride to have a black anthem. I've got no problem with that. That doesn't matter to me, but you can't spout at me to end racism and then separate things by having a separate black national anthem. Hello, McFly, is anybody home? It's like, these are all just like little things that add up for me over the years of just stupid shit that makes the Super Bowl less and less meaningful all the time.
Yep.
Okay, that's my podium. So I think for the flag, I pulled this up. Ryan and I are always kind of like hunting for the thing, and this kind of relates. It's a tee up now, actually. We're teeing up ESPN. ESPN is woke. ESPN is stupid. ESPN is not what it was when I was a kid and I saw it launch in, the great sports center in the 80s into the 90s. And then all of a sudden, crashed and burned because it got political. And here's a prime example. ESPN's tweet last night is, Black excellence with a crown. Jalen Hurts joins Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Doug Williams as the only black quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl. You are demeaning the performance of Jalen Hurts by bringing race into the fact. Race has nothing to do with the fact that he's a good quarterback. He could be green, he could be black, he can be white, he could be red, he could be purple. I don't give a flying what color he is. He had a good game and he won the game. That's what we should celebrate. Again, this goes into the whole end racism notion in the end zones. You tell us that we're a racist country and a racist people, and you pander to that and you act like that with this shit like this that you post. It drives me absolutely up a wall. Like, this is why ESPN is failing hand over fist and can barely stay afloat. Good. They can't keep anybody normal. There's the days I still think of, like the Kirk Herbstreits and the normal guys are limited on that network when they continue to do stupid stuff like this. Like, it's like they can't even hear themselves talk. It's like what's going on in DC right now with Doge and the people that are complaining who were silent before when all this money was being spent and thrown around, all of our taxpayer money. It's just such a double standard. It's laughable. It's ridiculous. It's insanity is what it is. It's like, ESPN, get out. Go with LeBron. Go live in another country. Go live in another world. Nike, get out of my face. All of you, get out of my face.
Yep. Crazy world. All right, we're going to hit around the world, but first, Spot 1 is presented by Norris Sports Group. NSG is a boutique agency of experts with 30-plus years experience in sports sponsorship and much more. Learn more about them today at norrissportsgroup.com. We hit the golf world, coming off of just a fun tournament at TPC Scottsdale. It was a fun one. Thomas Dietrich gets the job done. First ever win on the PGA Tour. By 7 shots, he won by a touchdown, 24 under par.
As Jim Nantz called it, right?
Yep. Just a phenomenal performance by him. He goes 66, 64, 265s on the weekend. That's the definition of consistency if I've ever seen it. Just a great performance out of him. And did you see the shot he had on 16? Just stuck it to like a foot.
Yeah.
Stone cold.
It was stone cold. It was a heck of a performance.
Yeah, and just good for him. He's been knocking on the door for a while. Last year he had a good season and was up there and contending in some tournaments. He finally gets the job done. Good for him. Wouldn't be surprised to see him on the Ryder Cup team.
66, 64, 65, 65.
Yeah, I just said that.
Oh, right. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's good. And some fun names up there as well. A couple we hadn't heard from in a while. Daniel Berger, career almost ended because of the hip injury and back injury. But it's just T2, and he's had a good start to the season. Jordan Spieth, best finish in like 2,000 plus days.
Coming off that wrist injury, had some vintage Jordan Spieth, like didn't drive the ball in the fairway
Hit
at
the
all
ball
on
under
Sunday.
a bush, had to
Left-hand
turn
putter.
over his putter, putt it out through the dirt, hit it over, and then in his third shot, hit it over a tree and put it to like 10 feet and made par. Vintage Jordan. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get in the win column this year.
JT's been playing
JT
better.
played
He also
well,
tied
hold
for
out.
sixth. Eagle in the last hole.
On the last hole. Bob McIntyre, good week. Adam Hadwin. Will Chandler, it's a fun name. He Monday qualified in his only second PGA Tour event, and he got tied for sixth. He shot a 66 yesterday. Beat Scheffler. He played with him. He beat him. And he earns a spot in the Cognizant here in a couple weeks in West Palm. McNeely up there, Minwoo Lee. Wyndham Clark started hot, then he kind of fizzled out, played a little better on the weekend. But just a great term. That one always delivers some really fun holes, especially on the back nine with water coming to play, short par fours,
Couple of
gettable
eagle
par
opportunities.
fives, and obviously 16, the Coliseum, just the rowdiest hole in all of golf. Just fun. And I'm glad it didn't have a playoff like it did the last few years, but it delivered with some good golf, and seeing some fun names up there this week.
Not a characteristic finish for Scotty.
You and I did terrible, by the way, in our
T25 for Scotty with a 72.
Yeah, he played
one
bad
over
yesterday.
par.
He had like 3 bogeys in a row on the back nine. Both of our guys missed the cut. That's not great. We'll get back off the mat. We'll be all right. Tiger's mom had passed away last week when we talked, did he not?
Right around when
Yeah.
I think when we had that
he was going to play this week in his tournament Genesis. He's not. He says he's not ready for it. I don't blame him. So we probably won't see him until the Masters, I would guess, unless he plays at Arnold Palmer or something, which he could. I feel like that's not super hilly, so he could probably play that, maybe in TBC. But all in all, good week at the Waste. We got a slam dunk hole in one by Emiliano Grillo. Phenomenal shot, and some not as much rowdiness on that hole. I think they
tamed it down. Last year was a free for all, and there still was. It was the party atmosphere, but it was a party and not like a raging frat kegger.
Yeah, it was tempered down a little bit, which is good. Not cleaning off beer cans every time someone hits a shot, and that leads us to the Genesis Invitational this week, usually at Riviera. Obviously, it's not because of the fires. Moved to Torrey Pines South. Saw a video tonight of the rough. Looks US Open like. I'm sure it's going to be a tough test. Obviously, just played the Farmers here a couple weeks ago. The signature event, second of the year. Big names.
What I'm going to miss the most about it not being at Riviera is is it number 10, that drivable crazy little par 4 that's got the camel back?
Mm-hmm. It's an awesome
green
hole, and they have the green with a sand trap right in the middle of it. Really cool. Just a beautiful layout. Hopefully that they'll be able to get back there next year. But Torrey Pines, obviously, lots of big names. The best in the world are playing in this one. And we will see what happens. My guy that I'm picking is a guy that has had a lot of success at Torrey Pines over his years. Hopefully he doesn't wear sweatpants. Jason Day.
I'm going with... So we were clarifying before the podcast with our picks we went to this year. You can't repeat picks except for you can repeat them once in a major. That's what we agreed to, right, Ryan? So I'm going with a guy who was in the driver's seat the last time before he got the stomach flu, and that's Ludwig Aubert.
Yeah.
Plus 2,200 to win.
Be a big tournament for him to win, obviously. Good pick. Looking forward to watching it. Hopefully it'll be a good one. I don't think I have anything else golf-wise.
No.
If you don't, we can skip to spot 2, mailbag. Chris?
Well, excited to say that we're planning our trip for 2026 to... Where we're going? In Sand Valley. So, a year plus from now, we'll have some good, maybe a whole podcast dedicated to those bad boys.
Could be. Spot 2 mailbag presented by Mitch Palooza this week. Chris Palooza
He's on vacation.
on
Aloha.
siesta. He's on holiday.
Mm-hmm.
I
I feel like you're always on a holiday, Chris. You're on cruises. You're in the
he's a lucky
Dominican. You're in
guy.
Hawaii. Nice.
All right, let's go, Mitch. He's got 4 for us. He's back. Kids are feeling better. That's good. We'll give you a pass for that one, Mitch. All right, number 1 from Mitch. Best second half performance for the Spartans since the Northwestern road game 6-7 years ago when they were down by 30. Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I didn't see that because, Ryan, you were playing that night. I just was kind of following on it was a home game. I remember at DeVos, I remember following, and I saw the score, and it was like Michigan State was down huge in the first half. I'm like, I'm done. And then I started to hear a murmur among some of the other dads that Michigan State was coming back, and I kind of caught some of the end. So different because we were at this game. But, yeah, I mean, and talk about a tale of two halves, probably arguably. Like, I don't remember the Northwestern game that the defense was that
They
bad.
just missed shots.
We just didn't make shots, and Northwestern played really well. Northwestern made shots. Oregon made a lot of shots on Saturday in the first half, but that's because Michigan State played right into their hands. I mean, it was just piss poor screen coverage. And it was like literally night and day, worst defense to one of the best defensive lockdown halves I've ever seen.
Yeah, just a complete
From
180.
Michigan
We'll
State.
discuss it more later, but yeah, the complete 180 in that half. What other golf event would benefit from a stadium-style setup? I'm thinking the Ryder Cup is a no-brainer. What about the Dell Match Play? Yeah, the Ryder Cup would be awesome if they did that on a par 3 every time.
Oh yeah, I mean that would go crazy.
Yeah,
that may get out of control too. Yeah, it's hard to. I don't want too many of them because it takes away
It
the
is special.
uniqueness. Like
in Canada, they kind of have it. They call it the rink.
yeah, the rink they do. That's a good point. Like I feel like that's what kind of makes TPC Scottsdale a little bit special because it's not an overly difficult course. Like the winning scores are always in the mid 20s to high 20s, and I think once it was like maybe even like 32.
Yeah.
It feels like. So I think you got to limit it a little bit. I mean, I think obviously at TPC Sawgrass, you have 17, which is its own type of unique thing. You got the rink, like Ryan said, at the Canadian Open. I don't think anybody else needs it. I think that's just that uniqueness that kind of gives that course a little bit of shot in the arm. And the fact that you got some gettable birdies and eagles if you need to make a charge on that course.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd add it anywhere else.
I could back that. Number 3, Jace Richardson averages blank points per game the rest of the season. I say 14 a game here out. Yeah, I think Michigan State's going to start weaving him into their offensive plans a little more because he's the most dynamic guy that they have, handling the ball, scoring the ball, and creating for himself and others. So
honestly, I mean, if you'd have told me at the beginning of the year that he was going to be better as a creating point guard than as a 2 guard, I would have said, But I also wouldn't have thought he was going to be quite this good either. I knew he was going to be good, but I didn't know he was going to be this good.
Yeah,
I mean, look, Holloman hasn't been playing very well. I think Holloman is just he can play the point and he needs to play the point, but he's naturally more comfortable at the 2. So I don't know that even the starting lineup necessarily changes because Fears is your one. You saw that they missed his on-ball defense in the first half, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. But I agree. I think, that's a long way to get to the question of how many points does he average. I think he definitely joins Akins as a double-digit scorer the rest of the way.
He's up into double-digit average now.
He's Michigan State's best 3-point shooter. He gets to his strong hand all the time. I know it drives you nuts, Ryan, when we're watching games and we don't stop guys or force guys to their weak hand or whatever. He's virtually impossible to force to do his weak hand. You saw it when he put the guy on skates. Like, I think he had a little bit of health. I wonder if he had a little bit of flu because I've heard rumblings that a couple guys had minor flu out on the West Coast trip, and then Booker and Fears were the ones that got it the worst, and Akins was kind of on the tail end of it on Saturday too. I kind of wonder with him because he got a little bit dinged because he had that big 20-point game in the Garden and then he kind of fell off for a couple games. Izzo has been saying for a while, like, we got to get this kid more shots. He's our best shooter. He's our best creator. He's a great finisher. He's an awesome free throw shooter. Yeah, I mean, it would not surprise me at all if he kind of becomes, I don't know that Izzo will rely on it for him, but I kind of hope he becomes that go-to down the stretch. I think he has that wherewithal to be the guy to take that on his shoulders even as a freshman.
He does.
And let's face it, there's a decent chance he's not coming back next year.
No, I think he's playing like this. No.
So you may as well not save him for next year. You may as well just put it on his shoulders. If Akins can't do it, then that's fine. He's a fine option B, then give it to Jace. Jace is the best player on Michigan State's basketball team.
Yep.
And I'm talking about both sides of the ball. Smartest, best offensive player, best defensive player.
Yep. All right, last one from Mitch. Early Super Bowl prediction for next season. He says Ravens-Lions.
I saw today Bills-Lions. That's what I said this year. I think the Bills and the Lions are kind of on that. They obviously been on the cusp. It's just so difficult, right? Because the Lions had a better season, arguably, this year than they did last year. But the injuries rendered them supremely defeatable when it came to the playoffs. And you look the year before, it was like, had they made a couple more plays, in times if guys had caught passes that they dropped on fourth down when the Lions went for their typical fourth downs, maybe they get to the Super Bowl last year. And getting to the Super Bowl is a stretch. That's why it was a big deal that the Chiefs have been there for the last 5 years and almost won 3 in a row. I think the Eagles aren't going to go away. The Lions aren't going to go away. I kind of think Washington might take a little bit of a step back.
Yeah, kind of like Houston.
They kind of came up out of nowhere. I think they're good and on the right trajectory. The NFC North is going to be pretty good again. But I think if I had to pick today, I think it's just as much of a shot that it would be Lions and Bills would be what I would pick.
Go Bills, Eagles. All right, that's all from Mitch. I think that's all we have.
Welcome back, Mitch. Good questions.
In mailbag this week, and we can jump to spot 3. But before, a word from our presenting sponsor, Team Andrews Realty, will help you find the home that fits your wants and needs. And they make the process simple and fun along the way. The Andrews have served thousands of clients for 30-plus years in the West Michigan area and are here to serve you today. Learn more at teamandrews.com. We hit college basketball at large. We'll talk Big Ten, maybe a little more. We'll dedicate a spot to Michigan State again as we have the last couple weeks. Dating back to last Wednesday night when we last spoke, there was some good ball that was had that night. Rutgers beat Illinois. Then Illinois got back on track with a win this week over Minnesota. But Illinois, they're a media darling for God knows what reason. They're poorly coached. This is an every other year thing with them where they have, this talent. Like, there's no denying the talent on their roster. It's the fit, the cohesion,
chemistry.
Brad Underwood, during COVID, they had a 1 seed, lose to Loyola Chicago in the first round. The next year, good season, lose in the second round to Houston, but they were good. The next year, weird season, had guys drop off the team, threatening, Underwood with all this stuff, whatever. They get an 8 seed, lose in the first round. Last year, obviously, really good, make the Elite Eight, lose to a juggernaut in UConn. This year, kind of back to that same thing where they're, talented. Obviously, they have really good individual players. They're 16-8, 8-6 in the Big Ten right now. It's been a weird year for them. The Big Ten is solid, but it's not it's not the SEC. I just don't. They don't really play defense. They have guys that go hot and cold. They pick and choose where they want to play hard, and that bothers me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking at the Big Ten standings right now, and I think it's a 3-horse race for the Big Ten championship.
Definitely is.
I think Wisconsin and UCLA are on the outside. I think Wisconsin is the sneakiest one. But I've said since the beginning of the season, and I've said it over and over on the podcast, 15-5 is going to win it this year. That means that there's only 6 teams even within play of that. Maryland would have to finish 7-0 to win it and go 15-5. UCLA would have to finish 6-1. Wisconsin would have to finish 6-1. And then you've got Michigan at 10-2, Michigan State at 10-2, Purdue at 11-2, and Michigan and Purdue play tomorrow, right?
Yep.
So could 14-6 potentially win it? Yes, but I really think it's truly a 3-horse race, and I think Wisconsin's going to have the most to say about it. I think UCLA, Maryland, and Illinois are going to finish out fine above 500, because then it cuts off at, you got number 8 Nebraska, 6-7. They just beat Ohio State last night, who's 6-7. Then you got USC, who's kind of sneaking up, but loses games they shouldn't, and they win games maybe they shouldn't. They're 5-7. You got Oregon 5-8. They're wildly disappointing. You got Indiana 5-8 in like the throes of a major skid with a lame duck coach. They had some good grit and some good fight to come back against Michigan over the weekend, but not enough. And they haven't had enough in any games. Rutgers is kind of up and down. They're 5-8. And then you got the teams vying to not be the 3 teams left out of the Big Ten championship or the Big Ten tournament. You got Iowa at 4-8, Northwestern and Minnesota at 4-9, Washington at 3-9, and Penn State at 3-10.
I'll tell you, Penn State and Washington virtually have no chance.
Still no losing records. 12-12 Rutgers and 12-12 Minnesota are the 2 500 teams, and that's the worst. A lot of teams close to that or whatever, but I think you're definitely starting to see that separation. You got Illinois and above all have winning records from 7 on, and then everybody else, Nebraska, Ohio State are close to 500. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes down the stretch. I personally still think it comes down to Purdue and Michigan State. I mean, Michigan State's going to play Michigan twice. I don't think Purdue and Michigan, do Purdue and Michigan play twice? They play once for sure.
Purdue and Michigan already played once.
Oh, that's right. Purdue destroyed Michigan. So good chance that Purdue wins again. Albeit I think Michigan's favored tomorrow night.
Zach Chrysler.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. There's lots of good games to be played, a lot of good games left. But the Big Ten is starting to kind of separate out a little bit. I mean, the middle is beating up on each other left and right for sure.
Oregon's really fallen off.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon's lost, 3 straight at least? 5 in a row now, yeah. And Oregon's got a talented team. Shellstad was really good. Baldy didn't do much against us. They've got an interesting looking team. Couldn't have looked more dominant in one half than the other against Michigan State the other day.
Yep.
Indiana, just another, poorly coached team. They've got plenty of talent.
That happened since we last spoke. Mike Woodson to be done at the end of the year. No surprise. Just a weird fit from the beginning. Where's Indiana turn? Who knows? Who knows what they're
Do the players care enough to finish it out and try to send him out on a winning note? I don't see it because I don't think they have a love affair with him. Like if it was a hero, which, Woodson was around obviously way back in the day, but like if it was an Alford or somebody like that, I could see maybe them rallying the troops and Indiana fans rallying, but I could see Indiana fans just going screw it and selling their tickets. I just don't. It wouldn't surprise me if they finished below 500 overall.
Yeah, they're 14-10 now, 5-8 in the Big Ten. They still have to play Michigan State. They play Purdue, Illinois. They have some tough games.
Mm-hmm.
A team that's really fallen off that we kind of thought could be good is Penn State.
Yeah.
They've been horrible.
Really, I don't know what's happened to them. It's not injuries either, is it?
No.
And they're well coached, so something's got to be going on there. I mean, they've lost a lot of close games. I do know that. They may have lost, I think, Michigan has the most wins by less than 4 points, and I think Penn State has the most losses by less than 4 points.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Michigan, I'm said it all year. Yeah, they a lot better, obviously. Like Dusty May's a good coach. They have a good roster. They turn the ball over like it's their job.
Mm-hmm.
They have an efficient offense when they're not turning the ball over, but they have some guys making shots that aren't shooters. I think it's going to wear off eventually, and I think weird matchups. I don't see it. I feel like they get a team with a lot of guards that can just go by. They're going to get their defense isn't great.
Well, and let's talk about Dusty May not addressing the direct question about whether he'd be interested in the Indiana job or not. Dusty May was a grad assistant under Robert Montgomery Knight. Asked after the game if, and he didn't say, no, I'm happy at Michigan. Like, he didn't even say the pat line where you say, oh, no, I'm good with my job, blah, blah, blah. Like, he didn't even do that.
No.
Like, he left the door wide open, which is super interesting. Now, personally, I think he's got way less pressure at Michigan because he's got plenty of money. He's got, Chrysler's at least a decent arena. He's got a good fan base. It's a football school. The pressure at Indiana to do things that they haven't done, honestly, regularly since the 80s and early 90s with Knight, they just haven't. They went to the Final Four in, 2002, I think it was.
That was the last
with
one.
Mike Davis. They just don't get, the stud players out of Indiana anymore. There was a day when no way Purdue would have gotten Braden Smith. That kind of guy would have gone to Indiana. he was a Steve Alford, Damon Bagley type of guy. So it'll be super interesting who they go after. Ryan, the name Ryan you've thrown out that scares me the most too would be Chris Beard. That dude knows how to coach up defense. Mm-hmm. I think he'd be an incredible fit. He's a little volatile, which obviously they maybe still
they don't care. They probably like that.
They maybe still have a little bit of a taste of that from Bobby. But, you think back to the last time they were regularly good too was Calvin Sampson. But, you got caught up in that like cell phone texting scandal or whatever.
Well, honestly, not even anything bad. But
no,
second-time offender.
Compared to today. So, Polo would tell you he's dirty as the day comes and he may know better. But, you got to look and think as Indiana, what if we would have kept him? And why did they give up on Green so early? It'll be interesting to see where they go because I think that they really desperately need to get this one right. And I don't think they got it right with Woodson, clearly, but they've got to get it right because college basketball is better when Indiana's good. It's like college basketball is good when Michigan State, Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, you could UCLA, you could even stretch to the outer blue bloods like UConn, Arizona. Like when those programs are good, that's when college basketball is good, and Indiana falls into that. And they have not been consistently good in a long time.
Yeah. Very good points. I don't really have anything else Big Ten wise. We could just at large, I guess. One and two went down.
Second time this year?
Yep. It's crazy. Duke loses to Clemson, who's smoking North Carolina right now. And then Auburn goes down at home to Florida. Florida, a really good team.
Florida's had two number one upsets this year. I mean, they beat Tennessee too. They
crushed
crushed Tennessee when they beat
probably their best team since they won back-to-back championships.
SEC is legit.
Yes.
The SEC is well overtaken. The Big Ten is the Big Ten, not much different. The ACC is dog meat. The SEC has stepped in.
The ACC and Big East are not very good.
No.
Big East is going to probably be a 4-bid. ACC 3 probably maximum. North Carolina's going to probably have to win the conference tournament. Wake Forest is a bubble team. Pitt's a bubble team. Probably on the outside looking in right now.
I mean, you look at it. You got Auburn, number 1. Alabama's number 2. Florida's number 3. Texas A&M's number 8. Tennessee's number 5. So they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 top 10 teams. Mississippi 19, Missouri 21, Mississippi State 22, Kentucky 15. That's 9 of their 10 teams. And then you got Vanderbilt, that's in the middle of the pack in the league too, and they're 17-6. And then Georgia's not that bad.
Yeah, they could. There's a good chance they break the record for most bids at 12. And it's very much a possibility unless some teams fall off. Which is possible, obviously, here down the stretch.
Yeah, because you got all the way to 13th in the conference is Oklahoma at 16-7, 3-7, and even Arkansas 14-9, 3-7. They're fighting in there. Texas 15-9, 4-7. Georgia 16-8, 4-7. Like a couple of those teams are probably going to get in, and I mean that is a deep, deep league this year.
Yeah, it's tough.
Versus. The ACC, let me look and tell
Duke,
you got Duke at 3, Clemson at 23, the only 2 ranked teams. Louisville's decent. 18-6, 11-2. Wake Forest is kind of sneaky, 18-6, 10-3. SMU, sneaky, like football, 18-5, 9-3. And then it kind of drops off. I mean, you got Stanford, so weird to see that. 16-8 with a winning record. North Carolina's about ready to go to 14-11, 7-6, and then nobody else is over 500. In conference play.
Yeah, bad conference.
Yep. Not your typical, that's for sure.
No. Yeah, the ACC used to be the best. Not anymore. All right, that's college hoops. Let's go to Super Bowl recap, and then we'll hit state of state last. I mean, there's not much to be said about the game. The Eagles absolutely kicked the crap out of the Chiefs from the jump. I mean,
40-22 says it was closer than it was.
Dominated this game. Didn't blitz one time, and they sacked Patrick Mahomes 6 times.
Yeah.
The Chiefs proved they're frauds. They just not great receivers, bad offensive line, not really a polished run game. And their defense was like they sold out to stop Saquon Barkley, and the Eagles have weapons, man. I mean, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith.
Dotson came out of nowhere. I forgot.
Dotson, he almost had. I think he was plus 3,300 for any time touchdown. And first touchdown, he was like plus 10,000. And he was a half a yard short. That game was dominating. I mean, Cooper DeJean picked 6 on his 22nd birthday. Mahomes was under duress the whole time. The refs didn't even need to get involved. They tried too early with that offensive pass interference that wasn't really a penalty. Just a crazy dominant performance from the Eagles, and they were ready for it. Like, I don't like the Eagles, but kudos to them, man. They did what they needed to do to win that game, and they smoked them. They gave them the business.
Yeah, they did 100%.
100% did. And you know, I don't really have much else to say. It was just so uneventful. Like, it was boring.
Right, I would say Hurts. He dropped some dimes last night. Like, he had the one bad throw where he got hit as he was throwing through the pick. But I mean, he dropped some in the bucket. Even the one to Brown where Brown got called for the OPI early in the game. I mean, that was a perfect pass. Like, he threw some really, really nice passes. And hey, you know, credit them. They didn't go away from their run game. They kept trying to establish their run game with Saquon.
They mixed it up a little bit.
You know, he ended up having he had about 100 total yards. I mean,
probably totally. Yeah.
He ended up with 57 yards rushing, only 2.3 per carry, and he had 40 yards receiving. So, you know, he was a factor in the game for sure because the Chiefs had to sell out to stop him. Yeah. And therefore, consequently, when he was maybe the safety valve, they left Hurts to run. He had 72 yards rushing. You know, nobody had a huge game receiving yards wise, but just the way they spread around the ball. You know, 5 guys had over at least 2 catches. You know, it was just an excellent performance by the Eagles. Almost a perfect game by them.
It was.
Almost.
They did really well.
And then they had to kick every one of their field goals twice.
Yeah, because of BS.
Which is a ridiculous penalty that was called on them. But so credit to their kicker who had a rough year. He made every one of those field goals twice.
He did.
5 yards longer every time.
He really did. Hell yeah. Good for him.
He was technically 6 for 6.
Yeah, we talked about the halftime show was good. I liked it. I'm a Kendrick Lamar fan. I like his music.
I think, you know, the music was good. The performance was good. There was definitely an underlying message there. I think most people probably missed that message, but you can go look it up and read, you know, kind of what the message of the whole show was. You know, the productions get more and more impressive all the time. The amount of people it must take to take that thing up and down that quickly to not impact the game for even longer. I just kind of still go back to my podium is like, is it really like, if you really truly want to make the music that big of a part of it, again, tease it with something cool at halftime that doesn't take as much of a setup. And then, you know, once the confetti's out there and you did do the trophy stuff and whatever, you're going to get your audience to linger if you then have the big concert. I don't think they ever would consider that, but I think there's something to it.
Yeah.
What I would do if I could wave my magic wand. And I'm just going to make a request. Like, I personally like all genres of music, love the 80s, love country. I like rap, not all rap, but I like a lot of rap. I didn't know a ton of his songs, but I knew a few. Still could get into it. Like, you got to switch up the genres a little bit. I feel like we're getting a little bit in the same genre all the time. Like, you know, I get it. And racism, so heaven forbid we have like Luke Combs or Morgan Wallen or, you know, country music or whatever. But like, I think you got to look at your fans as well, and you need to maybe change it up a little bit. Or that's maybe why your halftime show could be your post-game show and you have a couple of different acts or something like that.
The next 3 Super Bowls are Levi's Stadium in California, SoFi Stadium, LA, and then Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. So be interesting.
Yeah, interesting to see what they do.
Commercials, I mean, I'd say 95% of them were terrible.
They just don't make them like they used to.
Funny. There were a lot of them were like emotional.
They were more weird,
like hearts, like trying to like tug on hearts, but they weren't. They were just weird, emotional. Like it just
like okay, so Jeep with Harrison Ford was kind of like an American type of feel to it, and like fun. And him saying even better than my last name, like that was good. Or like the Budweiser with the little Clydesdale, that was kind of heartwarming or whatever. But, you know, I don't mind some of those. and I get it, like the whole cause behind breast cancer is, is a super important one, but that was just a bizarre way to do that.
Very bizarre.
Like, just people are just weird these days, and it exuded itself, in my opinion, in the ads that came out.
Yeah. The mustache one was funny. The Pringles, that was good. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah, that was pretty good. The one with the old ladies, couldn't even tell you the brand.
No,
that was pretty funny. Doritos I think Doritos does a good job. I thought theirs was pretty good. But
right.
like nothing stood out like, oh, I want to see that a million times. I mean, the When Harry Met Sally Hellman's, but again, that was released early. And you'd have to be my age to understand the reference, or have seen the When Harry Met Sally to understand the reference. Brilliant reference. Loved the movie. Thought it was a great remake of that, but like context for younger people, Ryan probably never seen that movie. Your friends in the room probably never seen it, so you're like, okay, what are they even? Clearly, they're spoofing something.
Well, yeah, I knew what it was because I've heard of that scene.
It's just like, I don't know. It's nobody comes up with new ideas anymore. That's for sure.
No, yeah. And they have a bunch of old, like, I get it, like, that's a spoof, but there's a bunch of, like, old actors and actresses in these commercials that are just, like, you're obsolete.
Yeah.
Very odd. Yep. And Jalen Hurts MVP deserved it. He's a weird guy, man. Like, he didn't show any emotion at all. He just, like,
like, even Sirianni was teary and, But yeah, Hurts was just it was like
it's like, dude,
maybe it hadn't sunk in yet. I don't know, but
you won the Super Bowl.
I think about my friend Kurt Warner, who his response and so emotional, and most of those guys like Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. And let's talk about that. How does Eli Manning, a 2-time Super Bowl winner, not make it as a first ballot MVP or NFL Hall of Fame guy?
Because his stats are 50-50 touchdowns to picks.
Whatever. He's won 2 Super Bowls. Takes something special to do that.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I don't make the rules. All right. That's that. Let's get to State of State. Michigan State football hit that really quick. 2 commits on Friday and Saturday. They got quarterback from East Kentwood, actually. Good quarterback. He was their
4-star,
target. Right? Borderline 4-star. Yeah, he's rising. Then a 4-star tight end from, as Rachel would say it, Swix Falls, South Dakota. 6'6" tight end. Michigan State beat Alabama, Penn State, a bunch of big names, so good on them for that. Michigan State hockey split with Michigan, lost at home, and then they win the duel in the D 6-1. Dominated them in that game to get back on track. They're off this week. Hopefully they can keep the momentum, win the Big Ten, host the Big Ten tournament, win that, and maybe make the Frozen Four. That'd be pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State hoops.
Michigan State hockey too. Let me say this. So they lost 2-1 on Friday, right? Friday. Peppered the goalie from the stats. Rare for them to lose at Munn too. I was watching the broadcast when we got home on Saturday night. They won whatever the trophy is for winning and dueling the D. 6-1. They figured between shots on net, shots that got deflected on the way to net, and shots that were just toward the net, not actual saves, that Michigan State had upwards of 100 shots in that game. Like, Michigan's goalie was red hot on Friday night because they peppered him with a similar number, is what I heard. Didn't see the game. So I think that's the key, because that happened at Ohio State too. Michigan State peppered the goalie the one night and he just was white hot and they beat him. So they've had a couple splits lately. Get the weekend off. Got a 5-point lead. Obviously, Minnesota's got to catch up. They could win 2, and they could take a 1-point lead. Michigan State has the benefit of playing Notre Dame and Penn State down the stretch. Those are the 2 worst teams. Nothing taken for granted. Michigan State, I think, lost in overtime at Penn State a month or so ago. So you do never know, but I like what I'm seeing from Michigan State and their chances.
Yep. I agree. Michigan State basketball, we talked about it a little bit earlier. They only had 1 game since we last recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties, A Tale of Two Halves. Michigan State gets down early, gets up, playing decent. Then Oregon just couldn't miss. Michigan State blown ball screen coverage, stupid turnovers, missing shots. just the perfect recipe. They're down 14 at half, give up 50 points at Breslin. It's the 25th reunion of national championship team.
Other
alums in the
alums
house.
there.
It was embarrassing, and I had a feeling it was going to go one of two ways: it would just keep getting ugly, or Michigan State's going to come back and they're going to end up winning this game by double digits. And that's what they did. Came out a completely different team in the second half. Offensively, they moved the ball,
got through screens, got over screens, got under screens, stopped running.
It started
screens.
with defense.
It did. It always does.
Michigan State
always does.
Locked Oregon down. They scored half their points, their 24 points that half from the free throw line.
No threes after making
and just
10 in the first half.
Piss poor officiating in that game. Really, just awful. Like Izzo really could have been tossed.
There were at least 5. And I'm not talking about, like, there's the calls that Ryan and I would look at as a Michigan State fan, or you could for any school that you're rooting for, and go, we got screwed on those 5 calls. There were 5 calls in that game that were just flat out wrong. They were just wrong. Like, they gave wrong possession. They called a block when it was clearly a charge, and a couple of other things. Just like, it drives me crazy with Michigan State being a blue blood, playing at home, that refs can get those calls wrong. Not that they didn't make the call I wanted, but that they got the call wrong. And I will give DJ Carstensen, what do we call him? Cyclops. I'll give him a little bit of credit, because when he teed Izzo, he went as far away from him as possible, because a lot of refs, like TV Ted used to be this way. There was a guy that was from Grand Rapids, I can't remember his name anymore. He used to do tons of our games all the time. Like, a lot of those guys will kind of hang around, and they'll just sit there and they'll wait to see if the coach blows up, and they'll give him that second tee gladly to kind of go on a power trip. I will give him credit, although he blew at least 2 or 3 of those 5 blown calls. He walked away, and he did not let Izzo's ire get to him. Because if you were standing close, I guarantee you he was bursting eardrums with what he had to say.
Yeah. And
you could feel that in the arena.
And credit to Michigan State. I mean, just the way that they handled themselves, they didn't panic. Jackson Kohler, a really nice game. Carson Cooper's playing better. He's been the whipping boy.
He's usually my whipping boy.
He's played better. Fiddler's the one that's terrible. Holy smokes.
But I will say this, like, offensively, yes. But he's been doing some things on defense. Like, he gives up his body. He can get kind of a key rebound. Like, I give him credit. He's shooting the ball horribly, but he's doing some of those things and overcoming a lack of athleticism, to be completely honest, at times. I mean, if you look at it, like, the Michigan State bigs were combined, 20 and 18, 29 and 24. 29 points, 24 rebounds.
Pretty good.
That's pretty dang good for
Last
you
year
guys. Played 23 minutes,
points.
31 minutes, and 16 minutes. So, like, Kohler gives up something with his lack of athleticism, but he's a good rebounder. Very rarely does he lose the ball. He's a good position rebounder. It was just a really solid performance by those big guys, and a shortened bench, right? No Fears, no Booker. So Michigan State goes from their typical 10. Tang played a little bit, but, never saw the court again. Still was a little bit in games, a little too fast for him still, that you can see. So in essence, 9 guys played, right? No, 8 guys played, really.
Yeah.
For what is usual. Carr got in foul trouble, so he was kind of a non-factor. The only thing that I was saying to a coworker today, that's one of the most electric atmospheres I've been in the Breslin in a long time. The only thing that I can't even imagine, had he had one of his patented oops or something, that place would have literally, the ceiling would have gone off, because that move where Richardson put the defender on skates and the announcers went crazy and his dad went crazy, the crowd went absolutely ballistic. Like, if you could take that up another level, I don't know how that place would have.
That was a
had
hell
balls.
of an atmosphere.
Oh, it was crazy.
Jace Richardson, what a performance. Got to give him his flowers. In front of Dad, in front of his dad's teammates.
Mm-hmm. First start as
he
a
took
Spartan.
It personally, and he was.
And honestly,
cooked.
People go to the offensive plays, which were amazing.
His
recovery block that he had, which is in the midst of when Michigan State was still kind of battling back a little bit and maybe had early taken the lead, unbelievable. Like, that got a lot of a cheer as some of his offense. And honestly, like, I thought he got fouled on one of his late 3-point attempts. He took maybe one heat check type of shot, but even Izzo wasn't mad at him, I don't think, because he kind of had earned it at that point in time.
Yeah, and
super efficient.
Izzo's players hate him. Jace hugging him and loving up on him, but Izzo, he's such a bad guy. He's such a jerk. Most sarcastic voice I could say it in. Ty's Bob, Robert Montgomery Knight. He's about to break his record against Indiana tomorrow night. How sweet is that going to be? That's going to be sweet.
Yeah.
Michigan State did it. Akins played a lot better in the second half. He said he's battling sickness a little bit, but he woke up and he played. He was clamps.
He's important. He's the only senior Michigan State has. Zapawa technically, but
Fiddler's a senior as well.
Fiddler, but he's the true. He's been around for the whole time. Like, he's the guy, and he's got to. Even if Richardson becomes the number one option down the stretch, he's got to be a factor in those games because he is a good defender, because he is a good finisher, because he can get hot from three, because he is good at the free throw line. He's got to have that confidence to be able to do that all the time. Like, it's going to be key for Michigan State to have he and Richardson both singing, and then Holloman to play a little bit better, Fears to play a little bit better, and then if you can get the combo of bigs to play like they have been lately, Michigan State's going to be a tough out. Which is a different song than we were singing last Wednesday after we were.
It is. I think they woke up, and it's the typical.
It took 2.5 games for them to kind of wake up.
The typical Michigan State February slide, and they're going to lose a couple games down the stretch. They will. They have a tough schedule. They play.
Michigan twice.
You just got to handle your
Wisconsin,
business at home.
Illinois,
handle
Purdue,
your business at home, and
Indiana,
steal one
Maryland.
on the road.
Yeah,
and you beat Iowa on the road, and then steal one of Michigan, Illinois, and Maryland, and you win out at home. You're going to win the Big Ten outright. Mm-hmm. You just are. You will go 16-4 or whatever that would be. Yeah, 16-4. You will win the Big Ten outright and be the 1 seed, and you could be a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. So hopefully they can do it. But this shows Michigan State's potential. If they play like that, that can be said about anybody. They play their best. But that version of Michigan State that we saw is a team that can go places. Mm-hmm. They just need to lock in for 40 minutes instead of 20 or 15 or 25. It's got to be 35 plus minutes of that, because to win it, you need to do that, and it starts on defense. If Michigan State can play defense like that, and I think they can. They can get the break going, and they're unstoppable when they get the break going.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Only time will tell. We're only 34 days away from Selection Sunday, less than 5 weeks. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. That's it. I don't have anything else. Let's finish this thing off with a sprint. Australia for an NFL game, yay or nay? They're doing this next year. It's a joke. Or maybe it's the year after. No, it's a joke. That's all I'm going to say. Why? That's literally 24 hours.
Why these leagues are so concerned with taking the game international? I know why. Money. By international, it's like it's America's game. I'm not a fan.
No.
If I was a player, I wouldn't be a fan, because I don't want to go. That's halfway around the world. That's tomorrow.
Yeah, it's literally
legitimate.
A day ahead.
It's like,
it's ridiculous. Where will Aaron Rodgers be at the start of next football season?
Yeah, that was a big move yesterday, I believe it was.
Jets said no more.
Well, who most needs a quarterback? The Raiders?
Steelers, Raiders, Giants, Saints, Titans. I think he's going to end up in Tennessee. I think the Titans are so stupid that they're going to draft or trade out. I think they might trade out of one and then draft, a defensive end or whatever. Keep Will Levis and then get Aaron Rodgers. I could honestly see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I like it. Raiders wouldn't surprise me. With Pete Carroll, although danger may go there.
He could go there.
If Dobb listened, we'd ask him what would the Steelers take him.
I asked Andrew. He said no way.
Yeah,
they're kind of the Steelers are honestly in quarterback hell. They are.
Yeah,
they're the definition of quarterback hell.
Yeah, they really are.
All right, third one is Myles Garrett and / Max Crosby / Trey Hendrickson / Micah Parsons is his name. Is that the missing link for the Lions to get over the top and make a Super Bowl?
I mean, you think about this year, like if they had a guy opposite Hutch when Hutch went down, they tried, obviously it was Zadarius, but like he needs a complement guy, but to have another A guy. Yeah, but at what cost? Like, what are you willing to give up? Are you willing to mortgage a little bit of the future? To get it next year or the year after, because I think they're going to have to get it with the amount of guys that are going to be due to have to be paid. They're not going to be able to keep them all. It's the next year or two. And honestly, that's where, the guys are in their most prime is right now. So, yeah, okay. If it means that they're guaranteed to get to a Super Bowl, I'm willing to do it a little bit. But now that we have a taste of winning, are we ready to go back to continual losing?
I'd say F them picks. Go get them. And then last and certainly not least, who will be Indiana's basketball coach 2025-2026 when all said and done?
I think if they can get past like the quasi baggage from his Texas Tech departure, Chris Beard.
Chris Beard, that's what I say. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in some idiot and mess it up and we're here 4 years from now or 3 years from now.
Yeah, I'm hearing Vanderbilt's coach is kind of like the Signetti. I don't know. I think Indiana just they can't afford to get it wrong again.
No, they can't. It's got to. This is it. This is it for Indiana. All right, that is the episode. Thanks for listening. Stay warm this week. Stay safe. The winter
couple
storm
snowstorms blowing through the next couple of week and a half or so.
But we appreciate you guys listening. As always, let us know if you have any questions you want us to answer.
Meantime, as Dr. Tony Evans once said, the world's shortest sermon found on a road sign is, keep right.